Radio Net.
Welcome to the Church of Mbabus. We're your hosts, Jeffery Pritchett and Guy Weddle. We're here tonight with Ted Rowe. That's Ted Rowe, R-O-E, of NARCAP, baby. That's right. We're going to talk about NARCAP. We're going to talk about shamanism. And we're going to talk about his love for the ocean. And we're also going to talk about Alfred Weber a little bit.
Well, aloha and greetings to all your listeners out there. Hello, everybody.
It's Ted. It's Ted Man. He's here live with us tonight, and we're going to get groovy. That's right. That's what we're going to do tonight with some super grooviness. We're going to get into all kinds of messes and trouble and tricks. So we're going to go straight to our guest. Unless Mr. Weddle has anything to say. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Weddle, before we go into our guest? Before we enter our guest?
No, sir, man. Let's go. Let's go.
Okay.
Did you like that before we enter our guest? All right. So,
all right.
first off,
all right,
Ted,
Ted, assume the position, man.
Ted knows Kung Fu and he has a sword, so he'll slap you. All right, everybody. It's been a long freaking week. Me and Whitley Strieber got in a fight this week, sort of. I'm still recuperating from the full moon and that. Everything's fine now. We made and kissed and made up. But other than that, everything's great. We're here with Ted. And I guess my first question with Ted is I want to know basically how your initial interest started with UFOs. Tell us about your childhood, Ted.
Well, like a lot of people, I've seen some UFO phenomena, and it made an impression on me. And after when I got a little bit older, I realized that I'd probably seen a little bit more. I was above the statistical average for people who are exposed to this thing, and I started doing research and spent about 10 years reading up on that before we got into founding NARCAP. And I had an observation, a very interesting observation in 1999 that led me to send a short note to the NASA PR office at Ames Research Center, and lo and behold, about 24 hours later, I heard from Dr. Richard Haynes, and one thing led to another, and he investigated me and my friends, and we became friends, and he came to me, he was getting ready to retire, and told me that he wanted to start an aviation safety reporting system program for dealing with unidentified aerial phenomena, that he felt it was relevant and a good approach, and I agreed, and we went ahead and set up NARCAP, and that's been about 11 years ago. We got a lot of people on board right away, like Dr. Jacques Lee and Dr. Bernie Hesch and Larry Lemke, Mr. Brian Smith, who's Deputy Director of Human Factors at NASA, and a number of other high-caliber folks, and we went right after nuts and bolts stuff and just stayed away from the speculation and unfounded conclusions that seems to haunt ufology in general, and just stayed focused on getting data on aviation cases involving encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP as we call them. So that's it.
Is Jock still involved with your organization?
Yes. He's on our executive advisory committee, and we call upon him for his expertise whenever we deal with government or have international issues on the table.
That's just like automatically badass. That's just automatic badass right there.
Oh, he's awesome. He's really a wonderful man. He's a very gracious man and very bright. I trust him implicitly with what we're trying to do, and he's the help of our executive committee as well as all of our staff have really been why we've been successful. Dick and I have sort of kept the helm, but the real work and the real good thinking has come out of the people we pulled around us. So we're fortunate there.
Hey, Ted.
Yes.
This guy. I read something about a month ago that kind of just really blew me away. That it's actually FAA standard policy for a pilot or a stewardess or whoever sees something that they want to report as a UFO, that not to report it to the FAA, but report it to NDIS, that National Discovery of whatever
NID?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That they were. It blew me away that they would have them report to like an unregulated.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and NIDS, of course, doesn't care at all about aviation safety, isn't the slightest bit concerned about putting any energy back into the system. That's the information flows one way, and you and I will never see it again.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of the problem, and then the other part of the problem is as you say, that these are aviation safety incidents, that these are serious, and that they need to be taken seriously, and that the FAA does not do that at this point. That's fact. You've got that right.
Yeah, they do not. They're not interested. They don't even want to hear it.
No,
they don't want to hear about it.
It's a bureaucracy matter. There's no question that certain issues in the past have chilled the discussion of UAP encounters within the U.S. aviation culture, and that's on bias and underreporting a while back. And I took a look at what pilots were dealing with and some of the causal factors on why they weren't talking about these incidents, when clearly you could sit down with a retired pilot over a beer and he'd tell you right to your face what he dealt with, but he would never say it while he was flying professionally. So we get a lot of folks, as soon as they retire, they come to us with their stories, and then we get a lot of other folks who are fairly willing to be open with us, but they're not going to talk to their managers or their crew or anybody else about what they might have encountered or seen. And then we'll get folks that are so nervous they don't even want to talk about that. So it's a tip of a huge iceberg. It's a lot bigger out there than people are giving it credit for as far as a problem is concerned. And certainly the U.S. has failed on many levels to engage this in good form.
So, Ted, I know a lot of cases that get reported are just, like aerial phenomenon and UFO sightings, but do you ever deal with cases that actually involve beings interacting on some level with witnesses?
In the aviation situation, there's certain types of incidents that occur that are fairly what you would expect them to be. You get near mid-air collisions, you get loss of separation, you get concurrent failures of equipment, usually electrical equipment, sometimes rough end of stuff that seem to be related to the presence of whatever it is they're looking at. And there are, bizarrely enough, there are a couple of examples of missing time involving pilots and aircraft. And there's a couple of examples of pilots and UAP disappearing together, sort of like the Valentich case down in Australia. Dr. Haynes studied that rather intensively, wrote a book on it. But as far as actual beings and interactions and the high strangeness that people deal with on the ground, other than those couple of cases that seem to have missing time involved, no, we don't get a lot of that. I've never had a pilot come to me and say he looked in a window and saw an ET looking back at him. I've heard them say they looked in a window and they saw lights or they saw something in there, but they didn't know. Nobody's come to me and said they ever saw a being.
So tell us about your recent deal with the Chilean government, or how that took place, and what the purpose of that is, the agenda, so to speak.
Well, the Chilean government have an official research team. It's called CIFE, and translated, that's the Committee for the Study of Anomalous Aerial Phenomena, and they're sanctioned by their government by public demand to study any cases involving unidentified aerial phenomena wherever they may occur in the country and do full due diligence around them. The programs run out of the Air Technical School. Like many smaller countries, the military and civil aviation facilities are combined. So, a military base will be on the same as a designated international airport kind of situation, and they'll use common radar facilities and this sort of thing to make it work. So all of this is really under the directorship of General Ricardo Bermudez. and he's then it's located in their FAA or their Director General of Civil Aviation, I believe that is, their DGAC. So they have this program anyway where they're studying these things, and we've been in a cordial relationship with their director since we founded our organization in 2000. So we've been talking to the various directors that have come through that program. And when they changed leadership a couple of years ago, General Bermudez took control and then approached us about a year ago last May. I received an email from him asking us if we were willing to enter into an official signed agreement with their government to work with them on research and on developing programs to train pilots and air controllers and to develop methodology for better research and share that. And it took us 6 or 7 months to hammer out the agreement well and make sure that we had proper terms and wording for all of it. And then we went ahead and had a signing in December. So the agreement became official then. We've done some case analysis for them already, and more to come.
So if an American pilot is, say, flying in Chilean airspace and he sees an object, does he report it to the Chilean version of the FAA?
Well, that's an interesting point, because this is something that's understood in all international civil aviation organization rules, which is the UN overarching body that controls all aviation developments that most countries of the world are signatories to. It sets the standards for all practices at airports and all air routes between sites. And if a volcano goes off, they got a way to route them around in different countries and so on. So, but what's really important to understand is that each aircraft is sovereign territory of the nation that owns it while it's in the air, regardless of the country it's over. So, a U.S. pilot flying over Chile is still U.S. territory flying over Chile, and what we need is the cooperation of the country that he's flying over in order to help get data if he encounters something there. So in our case, because we have a good relationship with Chile, we could probably get that information if it was an American pilot flying into Santiago or something. But that clarifies it a little bit anyway.
So when you guys sit around, and discuss topics with your counterparts and or let's say the Chilean government, do you ever, what's the hypothesis on what's happening? Why are they here? Is it kind of like the ancient astronaut theory? Is why are these UFOs here messing with us? Have you ever reached a conclusion to why they're even here at all? Like the main.
Well, see, this is the difference between us as a nuts and bolts research team dealing with science versus others who would rather just deal with what's sexy about UFOs. And science is not, but science has not established that there is a presence here. If you see something hovering over a tree, you don't know where it came from. You may not know how it's doing what it does. You don't know who's inside it or what their intent is or anything else. So unless you see the thing come from space, it's hard to say that you're seeing a spacecraft. I know this sounds kind of nitpicky, but there's a logic involved here, because if you're going to sit down and write a paper and write a report, you better be able to back up everything you say. And if you're going to say that there's an alien presence here, and then you're going to go into why they're here and what they're doing and who they are and everything else, every single thing you say needs to be backed up. And that's where we part ways from other organizations in the world that don't seem to care about such things, that are more concerned about steering their membership and steering any listeners than they are about actually dealing with facts.
Yeah, I get a lot of crap from people about when I basically have the same opinion. If you're going to throw out all this stuff, you got to have at least something.
That's right. You can't go around offering unvalidated conclusions or unverified conclusions and twisted logic and somehow you can do it and be a leader of an organization, but you're not doing science and you're not doing anything other than manipulating people with psychology.
Right. And that's 99% of the people almost had.
That's like MUFON. Right now, there's so much soap opera, just stupid stuff going on. They're just a joke right now. They're just a joke. It's just insane with all this stuff going on there right now. So NARCAP actually has like a membership, like any, like you have how many members do you have, or is it just your group of, counterparts, or is it like a group where anyone can join?
Well, we've got about 50 researchers, and we've got a couple of different types of researchers. We have technical specialists who are aviation experts, either retired or current in different aspects of aviation science or flying or air control. And then those are our technical experts. We have international technical experts that are our counterparts in other countries that are available if an American pilot encounters something in Germany. We got a specialist there who can help us with that work. Those are our international folks. And then we have what are called research associates, which really form the bulk of our membership, and they do a lot of our peripheral research and specific project work that we do, like Spear that we did a while ago. And the total number varies. We've had as high as almost 60, and it just kind of goes up and down between who's got time to deal with us and so on. And we don't keep everybody busy. We're not running all the time. It isn't a constant thing, but. And we really are looking for qualified folks all the time, and qualified means being able to do good research, being able to write a white paper and follow a style guide and follow a standard, an ethical, a moral, and a journalistic and a scientific standard of integrity, and then have an interest in the work and to help us with peripheral studies. We need people that know things about UAV research and what's going on in the world of unmanned aerial vehicles, so that we don't have misidentifications when we're seeing drones instead of seeing true unidentifieds, that kind of stuff. So peripheral research. So we're looking for those kind of folks. We're certainly looking for aviation sciences people of every stripe. We need double E's. We need aviation accident investigators. We need any kind of person that has an interest in this subject and some credibility in the aviation field that wants to contribute to step up. And if they want to be involved, we certainly want their help.
So you don't have thousands of members who have to pay, like, let's say, $75 a year for the rest of their life every year, correct?
No, we're not. At this point, we may become a membership organization at some point because we're on my funding and Dick Haynes' funding for the last 11 years. So at some point, we're going to have to talk about membership. But the whole issue is integrity. We need an organization that people want to belong to and that will work. And when we founded NARCAP back in 2000, Dick and I spent 6 months at least looking at all the other organizations in the UFO field, looking at who was making it and who wasn't. And by the time we were done with it, we were so discouraged because we could tell that every one of the major groups was heading for a fall. And we knew MUFON was. We knew that a lot of these other groups were too. We were approached by Mr. Bigelow, and we went our separate ways. We didn't take any money from him. I told Dick that was a deal.
Oh Lord.
And we went for years without money rather than knock on his door again. And there's a certain hubris that comes with dealing with that individual and their work. And I'll tell you right now, whatever it is, I mean, I know everybody's supposed to report their pilot reports to NIDS, but I'm sure they don't get any. When they had that regime going on before, I was told by Colin Kelleher that in 5 years they didn't receive one report from a pilot or an air controller. Because the first thing that they don't do when they see one of these things is open the manual and figure out who to call in the FAA. And that's the whole. If you're going to do activism, there's no point in even bothering being a contact point through the FAA. So anyway, we went through this whole thing of looking at all these organizations and who was making it and who wasn't. We decided that we didn't want to have anything to do with the word UFO because it didn't mean UFO. It meant flying saucer, alien spacecraft, Zeta Reticuli. It meant all this stuff. It carried a lot of baggage with it. So we chose a term that was less pejorative, unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP. And we have disclaimers on our site. We don't talk about aliens, and we don't talk about alien spaceships. We talk...
Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Yeah, I just heard take a wah.
Yeah, so did I.
You still sound like you turned into an alien being. You still there, Ted?
Zapped him.
Is Ted still there?
Yeah, I think he got disconnected. Hold on.
Jojo, help us. Beam Ted back to the mothership. I think Ted just got beamed up.
Yeah, he did, man. He just got zapped.
It was like, he's up into the mothership, man. They took him.
Well, leave your name and
You
number.
there, Ted?
Get back to you as soon as I can.
Yeah, Ted, we heard you, and you went,
Yeah, I can hear you.
What in God's name was that? Is Ted there?
Hey, Joe.
I don't know what just happened, but it sounded like Ted was beamed up, and then it sounded like a freight train going down a highway. So that's all I heard. Joe, help us. Hey, Joe, won't you help us? Beam Ted back in.
Yeah, he's working on it.
Hey,
All right.
I'm here.
Joe.
Hey, Ted, I'm not sure what happened. It sounded like you were beamed up in a mothership, and then a freight train came through.
Yeah, you know, there it is. It's the men in black keeping me from telling you the truth about all of this. So I hate it.
I believe so. But you're back, so let's get back on the gear, baby. I guess I'm very interested about the Leslie Keene and your NARCAP chapter. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Leslie's been involved with our group since our very first meeting, and she's been a good friend and a good supporter of us. A lot of her journalistic endeavors have reflected favorably on our organization. She's done a lot of activism behind the scene, and actually it was her work that got us involved with an inquiry by the General Accounting Office that was initiated by Tom Davis back in 2004, I think it was, to look into uncorrelated penetrations into U.S. air defense zones. That was Leslie's work. She set up the Coalition for Freedom of Information and referred a lot to our work and others. And then eventually she wrote this book, and we helped her. We wrote a chapter on aviation-related issues for her in her book, which I guess is being published in China. I heard this last week. It's doing very, very well, very successful.
I really want that book, but I'm too poor to buy it. But it's like on the New York Times bestseller list, so it's 1 year when I have money I'm going to buy it. I definitely want to check it out.
Get her on your show. Get her on your show.
Yeah, I need to.
If you like, I know her. I could probably at least open the conversation for you. No problem. I'll send her an email.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Well, I'll definitely get with you sometime and do it. The problem right now is I'm scheduling for November right now, so when I approach people, a lot of them like to wait that long. But so as far as the chapter, it's about, what's the details of it now? What is it about exactly in their book?
You know, Dick Haynes wrote the chapter. I don't have it right in front of me, but the gist of it involves aviation safety encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena and their effects on aviation safety and how well such events have been documented in most countries of the world. And that we need to resolve this. Science needs to engage. We need to find out what's going on here. Yes, it's a couple of different things. But there needs to be a thorough engagement at a high level to take this on. And this is where General Bermudez is showing some leadership and building a coalition of official research groups and efforts of merit like our team to help engage this study on a serious level. There are more PhD. The number of PhD with this right now in South America makes Blue Book look anemic. I mean, there's probably 100 folks working for Argentina, Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, and Peru. Not to mention France, which has got a battery of 30 of their own experts working as well, and then our team on top of it. So, I mean, Blue Book was a sergeant and a secretary for a lot of the time of its effort.
Yeah, and it was it was a whole debunking thing. Now the whole thing was just to debunk stuff. You know, you're not going to really get any. You're not going to really get any American scientists, you know, to go, you know, to really work on this and go public with it. Have you?
Well, you know, we have some, and they have helped us a bit, but the fact is that there's bias in academia around this.
Right.
We saw what happened to John Mack. It was absolutely sickening the way the Harvard censor board took on the topic because he'd done the work. The work was acceptable. It was only the subject matter, and when people are stifling inquiry because they don't like the subject, then, you know, that's not science. That's not intellectual. That's nastiness. You know, that's just ego. That has nothing to do with getting to the truth. And we need to get to the truth.
So when it comes to your organization and your perspective on exopolitics and some of the resistance you met from them, if you could, one thing I've been itching to talk about is when Alfred Weber told you that you were a hostile debunker under gray reptilian mind control.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think most people understand when they're looking at these pronouncements out of Weber and that Sala apparently used to out there, that they're filled with just unverified conclusions and speculations, and it lacks, and journalistic integrity is lacking throughout, and never mind scientific integrity. So I started by confronting Michael Sala on his claim that there was a secret meeting at the UN some years ago in 2008, and at that time I debunked one of his two witnesses right away. Myself and Dr. Jacques Delis got in a pile and confronted that, and so he had a secret witness, Source A, that he coddled for a couple more years and strung people along on until reality figured out who that was, and we don't hear from Mr. Sala much anymore. But the fact is that these organizations that push this stuff, we're compared to them. That, you know, if you're trying to do good research, you're going to be judged by the people who are doing the worst work in this field, because they lump you all in together as lunatics. And I am not going to be lumped in with exopolitics. I've worked very hard to move my organization upward. I haven't seen exopolitics contribute anything. It's a big club, and I don't want my organization anywhere near that. And as far as Mr. Weber's concerned, that's fine if he wants to call me if he wants to deal with me in his own mythology. But I've got probably a more direct description of his actions and the results of his actions, which are not helping the serious efforts in this field at all. And if exopolitics could show me like one signed agreement with a sovereign nation to do research with them, or any kind of anything where they're actually credible beyond having their own little powwows and parties and soaking money out of their membership, then I'd be happy to change my opinion on all of it. But as it stands right now, I think that group and groups like it are hurting this effort considerably, and I know I'm not the only research thinking it and saying it. So.
It's a fruitcake circus. I remember, I didn't know much about Weber, but I had heard a little bit about him, but I never really paid attention. But one day I went to the Examiner, and I was just going to see what he was talking about, and I started reading it, and it literally was an article about FEMA using alien technology to take souls from human beings and transport souls into other vehicles or bodies, containers, and house them in FEMA camp prisons.
Well, you know, and all I need to do, if he's going to call that a fact, I need to be able to check that fact. That's all.
Yeah,
that's what integrity is, right? You know, I ought to be able to check that fact and find out that truth, right? How come he has it and nobody else does?
Yep, the entire scene is the Weekly World News. If you look at those Weekly World newspapers, you know, Clinton's and, had the alien baby and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
These guys are writing that's 90% of the stuff out there. And people just eat it up. You know, it's just, you want, dude, you...
You know, I live out here on the South Kona coast on the Big Island of Hawaii, and this is literally the Sedona of the Pacific. It has every bit of the New Age. All of it is here. Now, some of it's pretty good, actually. Some of it's fairly well thought out and alternative ways of thinking and doing things. And then a lot of it is just nonsense, like what we're talking about. And people seem. I got a story. I was sitting at a potluck one time, and everybody was talking UFOs and aliens, and I just really don't want to talk about it when I'm in these groups down here, and I'm more bohemian. I just don't want to be that guy because I know how I feel about this, and it's completely contrary to where they're at. But this woman, she leans over and she looks down the table and goes, "Ted, I heard you're into UFOs a little bit." And I kind of smiled and looked up the table and said, "Well, I dabble, you know." And she said, "I heard that you did research." And I said, "Well, yeah." And then I kind of explained, if you want facts, you have to do this and you have to do that, and you got to talk to people, and then you got to validate what they say, and then you have to document it carefully, and and this is what science is. And her response to me was, "But that's so tedious," as if there was any other way to do it.
Yeah, man.
And it's so basically they abdicate using their brains so they can live in a castle in the air. They build a castle
Let me tell you,
and that's it.
Let me tell you, Ted, when all the MUFON stuff was going on, Chase quit. She quit MUFON, and she came to me, and I jokingly said I want to make a group, to do, UFO research and all that stuff, and I would call it Mbabus, Associated Bureau of Ufology. And I didn't really want to do it, but she kind of talked me into it, so I tried to do it, and it's just so tedious. I quit. I didn't want it for the first few weeks. Like, I'm a full-time college student. I have a show. I just can't. I'll let other dudes do it. I'm not cut out for it.
True case investigations, if they're done correctly, are detailed. They're intensive. We end up usually with a binder, a 3-ring binder that's fairly well filled by the time we're done. When we do interviews with pilots, these are 3 or 4 hour long affairs involving my chief scientist is a perceptual psychologist, so he's testing their perceptions throughout, and it takes time. Okay, when you're at this angle, what did you see, and how did it look like that, and why do you think it looked that? You know what I mean? And you go through this whole thing. And in the background, this guy's done science. He understands how the eye works and how the brain works and how the brain processes what it sees, so he can test these people as he's going through his investigation, and I have several of these things on videotape, and they're quite long and quite involved. And I'd be very surprised if there's 5 researchers in the United States that are even close to that level of detail and understanding of the material to begin with, much less as detail oriented as we are doing the work. Yeah, we don't jump to any conclusions. We've had some cases that are clearly. If you want to jump to a conclusion, you could run a long ways with it, but we don't. We just document what happened, like we did with the O'Hare case, and like we did with Project Sphere. Some of the papers I've written, it takes time, and you can't come into it with a bias. You can't say I'm here to prove the aliens are here, because nobody's proved the aliens are here. What you're trying to do is just prove the data is strong, and if the data is strong, it'll tell you what's going on. So you want to document carefully and let the data speak for itself. And if you do it right, you won't get a lot of opposition. I mean, in 11 years we've been here, we haven't had one shot over our bow by anybody. Jim Olberg's kind of snuck around the edges of things and claimed that pilots are bad witnesses and stuff, but it's nonsense, and I think he knows it. But other than that, nobody's really challenged us on any of our work.
If you've ever watched some of them silly interviews on Project Camelot, you'll see them. They'll be a lot of times they'll be doing an interview with a legitimate person, researchers or scientists, usually from another country or something like that, and you can just watch them lead them with their questioning to UFOs and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Then it's aliens, and then it's what kind of aliens, and it's where they're from and what they're doing, and it just
and they're like they don't really know how to respond. They should know what they're getting into, but it's irritating because you can't just let the person talk and get the information out. You got to twist it and turn it, and
That's right, and the situation is very interesting. There's no question about it, and there's plenty of room to sit around with a flashlight under your chin and tell the darkest stories you want to, and to speculate and wonder about it. There's certainly reason to do that. I think that this is an extremely important study, and it really needs to be engaged at a very full level, very quickly, and resolved as fast as possible. I don't think that's happening, but that's my opinion, that this is very, very important. But it's important until the data tells us otherwise. And if the data tells us otherwise, then it's not important. But we need to get to the bottom of it and find out if what we're looking at is what it might appear to be. Now, I had a problem with this with the Chilean government, for example. They had a meeting with their military, and they had encounters, incidents. I shouldn't say encounters. Incident, I think, is a better word, with unidentifieds down there in the 60s, and they came to the U.S. government looking for help and to engage the subject, and they were dismissed, and it left such a bad taste in their mouths that when the military met, they have meetings frequently with the military and CIFE in Chile. And CIFE announced that they'd formed a coalition with our organization. I had to write a letter to the general staff that was present there, explaining that we're an activist group, that that we disagree with the U.S. government position on unidentifieds, and that there's at least one category of observation that we need to work together very closely and resolve. For the good of not only ourselves but humanity in general. We need to resolve whatever it is or is not. We need to prove that and get that done. And I think I didn't hear any more flack from that side about us. So, but there are problems here. This is international diplomacy. This is exopolitics. Okay. This is doing the work at the international level, trying to fix this stuff and working through and getting the momentum necessary to build a coalition that's international, that can take this thing on and not be contained by U.S. government pronouncements or, singular countries, but to come to a consensus. And if the U.S. government doesn't come along, that's fine, but the rest of the world may come to a different conclusion than the U.S. does. It's okay.
So, Ted, how do you feel about the ancient astronaut theory? Eric von Däniken and everything. I've been watching Ancient Aliens the first season for the first time, and there's something about it that resonates with me. It seems like it's like right on. I mean, maybe, but to me, it seems like it's just right on. It seems like there are beings here that have been, that created us, that have interacted with humanity since the beginning of time, have built civilizations and monoliths and left, monuments to show that they've been here, and it just seems like it's right on. And I do believe these beings on some level believe they're like God, and when we misbehave, they punish us. And there's proof of that throughout history. I forget where, but they showed on one of the Ancient Alien episodes this place that radioactive, nuclear atom bombs were dropped there before we even had the atom bomb to punish, humanity. And it seems like they're on this God trip, and if humanity misbehaves, they say, hey, we're going to, whack them. It just seems like, to me, personally, I believe there's great truth to the ancient astronaut theory. So what do you think about that?
Well, that word, those words, I believe, are kind of, they're double-edged, okay? On one hand, they can empower you, and you can become greater than the sum of your parts, understanding those words. And then in other ways, they can take you completely apart and put you on a false track. And in my experience, for what I've seen and what I've experienced, and then what I've done in this field, I've learned basically to purge the words "I believe" out of my. I understand von Däniken and his approach, and I read a lot of his work back when I was younger, and even Carl Sagan said that it was entirely possible, in fact, even likely, that we've had visitations in our ancient past. But nobody would bite off the idea that anything was going on now. And particularly Sagan, who founded SysCop and Skeptical Inquirer, by the way, one of the founders. So, this idea of ancient astronauts, anything is possible. We don't know who we are. We don't know how old our civilization is as human beings. These structures they found in Bosnia recently are dating back to 30 or 40,000 years, which would make them the oldest constructions done by humans that are that are documented at this point. So there's a whole wall of history behind us that we don't really know anything about, and there's an awful lot of discussion in our mythology about those who came from elsewhere and had some involvement with us, whether it was through the Sumerian tales or the Egyptians talk about this a little bit. Horus, the god Horus, Horus-Behotep, was not from the Egyptian pantheon of gods. He came from somewhere else, and he slew the enemies of Ra in his form as a winged disc, and he used rays of light. And then eventually he was dismembered by Set, and the only piece they didn't find was the eye of Horus, which is the Watcher. You know, the Bible talks about the Watchers as well. So you know, I think there's plenty of room for this discussion, but I don't think there's a lot of evidence for it. And in the meantime, we have things going on right now that we need to resolve. And so, as interesting as all this is, and as much as it might help explain, it's not going to be nearly as helpful as some really solid data in the here and now. To really base an idea on, you know.
You know, I think some of that's pretty good, but they have. I've seen, you know, almost whole episodes to where, you know, they'll come up with something and they'll, you know, find a painting or something like that, and they immediately jump to ancient aliens. You know what I mean? It's just speculation.
I know it's a TV show, but he was asking about the ancient astronaut theory versus how it's being portrayed. And I mean, I know it's exactly what you're. They pull out these paintings from Italy, and there was a time during the Renaissance when if you didn't involve God in a painting, you were going to get burned at the stake, basically. You know,
right.
So God's eye needed to be somewhere in that painting. You know. And oftentimes there was a God's eye painted in the corner, or what appeared to be a God's eye, or something oddball up there, a guy on a meteor or whatever. But, you know, there were ways of doing this to satisfy the church requirements for art, you know. So, and a lot of times these little details don't float out into the mainstream, you know. And just because it's on TV will make it so, and it certainly doesn't mean the research has been well done to present it to begin with. As you guys know, with production, you know, it can go sour. That's part of the
How do you guys, how do you decide, like sometimes I wonder if it's just our own American government sending stuff over to Chile to spy on them, you know. Who knows what our American government has as far as technology. I mean, it's probably like Star Trek behind the curtain, so to speak. I mean, how do you differentiate if it's our American government spying on a country, their weird technology, or if it's like a possible otherworldly, you know, alien vehicle or whatever?
Let me take a twofold response to that. The first response to that is that we suspect there's a couple of things going on. The first is that there are misidentifications of human activity, and that includes drones and this sort of thing. And anytime we think that there may be an issue involved, we back off. We won't touch the case, and our agreement with Chile is the same. If it's a national security issue on their side or it's one on our side, we both have to agree or we don't publish. So that's an example of that, okay? National security issues we don't touch. But we also think that there's a couple of other things happening. One of them involves poorly documented natural phenomena, and there's some good examples of it at Hesdal in Norway and a couple of sites here in the U.S. where you can go and see light phenomena that are absolutely challenging, but at the same time most likely from a natural source. And then there's another category of observation which seems to involve technology and descriptions that are consistent over 70 years, basically over the entire history of powered flight. We've got reports from 1926 of a guy claiming to have been accosted by flying manhole covers. So, you know, there's that category of observation as well. And until we get some resolution in some of this stuff and really learn to pull the signal out of the noise from these different types of situations, we're not going to have a clear answer, and that's what we're trying to get to. So,
groovy, Daddy-O. That's right. It sounds like you're definitely on top of it, and you got the junk man there too, so you can't get any better than that.
No. He's awesome.
Well, as we approach we got about a few minutes, a 10-minute break, but I want to kind of build up to the next topic for the next hour, which includes your shamanism perspective and your love of the ocean. And what I wanted to talk about as we go into our break in a few minutes is we discussed on the phone when I talked to you the other day the scenario I can't remember the names you said that who spoke about this, but basically, back in the day, the shaman looks out into the ocean and he sees ships coming on the water, coming towards land, and then he, does his little shaman dance. And he starts telling all the other people in this, village to look, and all the other people in the village don't see anything. They don't see it because they can't comprehend it mentally or whatever spiritually that it's even there. But the shaman can. So that's why shamanism is so beautiful to me, and we want to hear your perspectives about it. And if you could, what did you know about that story a little bit? Who did you say that came from originally? Because I saw it a long time ago, and it always stuck with me.
The first time I heard it, I was speaking at a symposium at George Washington University with Dr. Michio Kaku and Dr. Vali and Dr. Heisch and Dr. Peter Sturrock and John Callahan from the FAA, and then Richard Henry from Johns Hopkins. And Richard Henry's presentation included that story. So it's Dr. Henry's presentation out of Johns Hopkins where he discusses that. I think he got it from Margaret Mead.
Margaret Mead?
Yes.
I'll have to look that up. But yeah, I mean, that's like I told you, at one point I was seeing UFO craft and there was a guy next to me named Robert Smith, and I was seeing this stuff. Other people, of course, in my family saw it too at different times, but at that particular time, I saw something and this dude standing right next to me, and he doesn't see a thing. And I'm like, look, it's right there. And he's like, I don't see anything. So I think there's something to that on some level. Definitely.
There could well be. There could well be. And people's awareness and their ability to engage things is not as open and as we'd like to think it is. That's why we study shamanism. That's why we study expanding our consciousness, because most people are not aware enough of what's going on around them. They can literally look at things and not see it, even though it's happening right in front of them. And it isn't just UFO activity, it's all kinds of stuff. I've watched people stand there while somebody was being beaten up and not even understanding that somebody was being beaten up and help was needed, things like that. Humans they're not all created equal, particularly when it comes to awareness and response. So that's anyway.
That goes on a lot. People witness crimes, or they're scared to intervene, and they're afraid they'll get hurt as well. But I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
They won't even see it. They'll see it, but it won't register to them to act, or even to think about it secondarily. They'll go in through one ear and out the other, basically, or in through the eyeball and out the back of their head, and it just doesn't register. It isn't even something that's got an emotional thing about it. They just literally look at it and they don't see it. I've done this a lot with people in the ocean. I point out animals and all kinds of stuff, and they're looking right at it. They don't see it. It's because they're not prepared on how to look into that world.
We'll definitely get into the shamanism topic when we come back. One thing that I was talking about in the chat room earlier was just kind of off base. I was wondering if you heard about the guy who was in Hawaii. He was at the geysers or whatever, and he was like, dancing around the little geyser holes, and he fell in one and I guess vanished and died.
Yeah, it happens. He fell into a puka, and that can get you. People get lost in the idea that this is paradise and it's just a rock, and it's a dangerous rock. He turned his back on the ocean. It said right in the article. He turned his back and he was taken out by a wave and shoved into a blowhole. And that's one of our big rules: never turn your back on the sea. And
did they find his body?
No.
Man, that creeps me out.
Well,
terrific.
Yeah, that last photograph is a pretty haunting one. So, yeah.
What was the last photograph?
Well, it just showed him standing near the blowhole. A passerby was taking pictures of his kids and caught him in the background just a few seconds before the wave nailed him and blew him into the hole.
Jesus, it's just bone chilling.
Well, these shorelines, they're tricky. It's lava and lava tubes. It's not sandy beaches. So you got to take this stuff seriously, and I think sometimes people don't. Obviously, it's paradise, but it's got teeth. You know.
Definitely. How many more minutes do we got, Guy?
We got about 9 minutes. About 9.
Oh,
I know one story that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we can march right into anything in 9 minutes, wherever you want to go with that.
Tell us about your kung fu secrets.
The secret is a lot of sweat and finding good teachers. Yeah, and then just sweating a lot, and that's the answer. If you want to be a good martial artist and you want to be lethal, then you need to train and you need to study. And if you do those two things, then you need to learn how to temper it so you aren't lethal. The bottom line is that martial arts really are nurturing. It's about nurturing and protection, and the best ones become shaman and healers, and the rest of them don't learn how to defeat their egos. And that's where you have to go if you want to be a healer, and if you want to be a shaman, you've got to get beyond the need to destroy your enemy, and you've got beyond the need to have an enemy, or even.
So you train with a sword too? I've seen the sword pictures. You're pretty good with a sword.
Well, yeah, I've trained for many years with swords, and the whole purpose of that is about expanding your awareness. When you have a weapon in your hand, it doesn't matter if it's a sword or anything, or your bare hands even. What you want is your awareness expanded out quite a ways so that you can process very, very quickly. You can read a movement and counter that movement, or engage or merge with it or avoid it, depending on the system you've studied. But the whole point is to expand your awareness, and the only way you do that is by moving up into the present, and it's done with balance and with breath. And that's the root of shamanism, and that's why martial arts are a shamanic practice. You move to an altered state, and you do it through your breath and through your balance, and become greater than the sum of your parts, because you're fully in the moment, fully in the present. You're not thinking about what bugged you last week or what could get you tomorrow. You're right here, right now, pulling all the levers and looking at all the dials and knobs in your own consciousness. And when you're like that, you're formidable, particularly if you've got any training behind you.
There's an Oliver Stone movie called U-Turn with Sean Penn, and there's I think Jennifer Lopez or somebody's in it. But anyway, there's this blind shaman on the street corner, and he's just like a shaman, and he's blind. And he's talking to Sean Penn, and he goes, "We're all in body."
That's right. That's one way to look at it. That's one way to look at it. Absolutely. The whole point is integration. And, you know, think about it, Jeffrey. What is love but integration? We talk about love and the heart of compassion, and we hear gurus talk about this all the time. Oh, you must come to the heart of compassion, and there you will find bliss. You know, well, what are they really saying? You know, what they're saying is that if you integrate with the world, you don't have room for negativity or hard thoughts, and there's nothing but love. And my experience has been that when I'm fully integrated with reality, I don't have. There's no need for me to pull a weapon. There's no need for anything, and no matter how bad it gets around me, I have the tools I need to work through it in the best way possible. And that's where you want to be with your consciousness, moved up into the moment, operating out of the heart, soft belly, open heart, and skin like a rhino, and then move through the world, making the least footprint you can and bringing the most joy in the process. Give love and gather love. And if you're in that state and you're fully aware and in the moment, you will see and learn things that your average person does not learn about reality and how it's occupied and how it functions. And that's when you start moving up levels.
What's the surefire way, let's say someone's engulfed with fear or hate, or like sometimes I get in really dark. This week it was just raining for days. I love the rain, but I just kind of ugh. How do you get out of that when you get stuck in that from that perspective?
Well, the trick is to move into the moment. If you move into the present, then you're not haunted by the stuff that bugs you, okay? And suddenly there's beauty everywhere. But how do you move into the present? I teach people to do it with their breath. And I teach them a breath pattern that's like pranayama yoga, and it's what I teach my freedivers to do. And it's the breath I use when I'm doing deep diving to 100 feet, 50 feet or whatever. I use this breath pattern before I go because it slows my heart rate down and lowers my blood pressure. And when you do that is the physical symptom of stress. That's what reminds you that you're stressed. I'm so stressed. It's because your blood pressure's up. So when you drop your blood pressure down, then your consciousness, your mind just buoys up into the moment. The first thing that happens when you calm down, you go do something fun. It's in the moment, it's now, it keeps you occupied fully. And
so you got to remember that you're living in the now moment. That's a key to it, I guess. I forget to do that all the time. I remember.
That's a key. That's a key. But you got to bring your body with you and slow your heart rate down. And you do that with the breath pattern. And I'm not going to do it over the radio here, but I'm happy to share it with you later. And if anybody wants to know, you can meet me on Facebook, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. It's just, it's not responsible to just blow it out there otherwise. But
will you give me a breath hug? Will you give me a breath hug right now?
Oh, you got it, brother. Here it comes.
All right. Well, how long do we got,
Listeners, if you get a chance and you're asked to give love, give love. And that's what Jeffrey asked, so give it up. All right? That's nothing.
All righty then. On that note, we're going to go on break.
And hug me, baby.
Okay, you got it, bro.
The Church of Mbabus radio show is now in session, Saturday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, with high strange scholars teaching us of ufology, the paranormal, the occult, and the metaphysical. Seek sanctuary with the Dark Reverends, Jeffery Pritchett and Guy Weddell at www.mbabusincarnate.com. Always moshing with the apocalypse. Now get down on your knees and pray!
Are you a fan of the unknown? Do you constantly watch the skies, wondering if there's something out there, in fear of things going bump in the night?
Whispers Radio brings you headfirst into the world of the paranormal with the latest news and interviews with the paranormal elite. With hosts Jordan Klein and Nick Queen, you are sure to be consumed in the world of ghosts, UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracy theories, and the unknown.
So check out Whispers Radio every Tuesday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 7 Central. And give us a call, 1-866-514-1600.
Visit us at www.whispersradio.com.
Hi, I'm Gia Scott. I'm the host of this really cool little radio program on Tuesday nights from 7 to 9 p.m. It's called The Dawn of Shades. I bring in a wide variety of guests, and we talk about all sorts of things. Some of them are authors, some of them are experiencers, but it's all paranormal. Do tune in to The Dawn of Shades from 7 to 9 p.m. Tuesdays, and you can always catch our guest list at www.giascott.com.
Hi, you've got to listen to ICAR, that's International Community for Alien Research, www.icar1.com. As you know, I'm Irish.
Light up your night with the Kevin Smith Show. Hi, this is Kevin Smith. Join me Monday through Friday right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Are you interested in a radio program that focuses on the deeper aspects of the UFO topic? Would you like to explore the facts and truths of what ufology and UFO research are all about? Then please join us here every Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central for Eye to the Sky, the UFO Synopsis, with your host, D. Andrew, right here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. And remember, UFO research is not a belief system.
Hello everyone, Trish Sheridan, host of A Global Focus. Come join us each Friday evening at A Global Focus's new time, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Come join the discussion.
Hi, this is Rob Simone, and I want to tell you about my brand new show here on the Paranormal Radio Network. Each week, I bring you the most interesting people on the planet, the most in-depth discussions, and the most controversial issues. We'll go where no talk show dares to go. Join me every week for the Rob Simone Talk Show here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Hey, Steph, Second Sight NYC must be doing something right. Why do you say that, Chris?
Well, we've told people to kiss our beep if they wanted something sugar-coated to buy a donut, and we have more listeners than ever.
Maybe that's something to do with everything Second Sight NYC has to offer.
What do you mean, like our rapid-fire readings or a real cool New York accent?
What about the gemstone of the week, psychic dream interpretations, email readings, and birthday week readings?
Plus, we always have a great guest interview.
You still lose your mind every now and then, Chris.
Yeah, whatever. And you're still there to reel me back in, Benetti. Let's cross the threshold of what's real and unreal together.
Join us each week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we walk through the door into the paranormal world.
The last time I walked through that door, I couldn't find my way back.
I said the paranormal door, Chris, not the abnormal door.
Real funny, Benetti, real funny. We make the unbelievable believable.
Join us.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Next Saturday, Lisa and Stan Romanek, friends of the show. They've been on the show before in a very controversial show long ago. You can find it on the archives regarding Jeff Ritzman and visual analyst, and very controversial show. I believe it was our second show when we first started with Stan Romanek. Well,
it's like a 3-hour show, man.
Yeah, it's like a 3-hour shindiggy. Well, pretty much they're coming on, and we're going to talk about married couples. So basically, they're going to tell us erotic bedside stories about aliens, hopefully. So, oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, I saw the Day Paracast is trashing Philip Imbrogno. Somebody came forth and claiming that he's a fraud. So I don't really, I forget who they mentioned that.
Well, yeah, they said he fudged his resume.
What do you mean?
Well, I guess he embellished on some stuff.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So they're discounting everything he's ever done or said. You know what I mean? Now.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't agree with that.
A
lot of people do stuff to get their foot in the door.
Sure. Well, what I'm interested is that's Philip Imbrogno is like Paratopia's golden boy, so those two are going to chew their legs off while we watch him become.
That's right, man. That's going to be fun to see, and we're going to egg them on too, dude. We're going to feed the fire. Trust me.
Until they eat each other.
Yeah.
And then the last week of the show. Oh, I forgot to mention the contest, and then we'll go to Ted. We have a contest right now. The last Saturday of the month, Jeff Mudgett, author of Bloodstains, he's related to Mudgett, his first serial killer, who most people know him as H.H. Holmes, who is the Carnival Killer. Chicago, if you ever heard of the Eric Larson book, Devil in the White City, basically Holmes set up the murder hotel, or murder castle they call it, and he would invite you in and trap you behind glass and watch you die from cyanide and lock you in safes and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Leonardo DiCaprio is about to play him in the movie Devil in the White City by David Fincher. So basically, if you want to partake in this contest, you can win a copy of Jeff Mudgett's book, Bloodstains, signed by Jeff Mudgett. All you have to do is submit a question regarding Holmes, and the top 5 questions will receive a copy of his book signed. And also, we're going to bring in, I think, a guy named Mark Potts, if everything works out. And there's a big thing going on right now about Holmes possibly being Jack the Ripper, which is upsetting the British people quite heavily. And there was a magazine article that just came out in some I can't remember the name of the magazine, but basically there's a lot of compelling proof that Holmes was over there he's possibly Jack the Ripper, which I don't know. We'll discuss that on the show. But
that hotel was like a hotel within a hotel. There was the place where, where everybody stayed from like the World's Fair and stuff like that. And then there was an alternate. There were like secret doors with like other hallways and rooms and everything. That was like where he kept everybody.
Yeah, and basically Holmes is terrifying. He's scary. He scares me.
Yeah, he took his stepkids on a, I think it was a stepkids, not his actual kids, on a train ride across the country. And he kidnapped them, and he ended up killing them. He put them in a case at this house. He put them in a chest and full of carbon monoxide.
Crazy. Jeff Mudgett is related to Holmes and supposedly has some diary left behind. We'll get into all that on the show, so it's going to be a good one. If you have a question that you want to submit, you can go to, send it to my email, ufofiend@hotmail.com. That's ufofiend@hotmail.com, or my Facebook page, or Guy's Facebook page, or the group, Church of Mbabus Radio Show group on Facebook. We'll get into that show. It's going to be freaking bone-chilling. All right, let's get back to the Tedster. Teddy! Ted, if you could, kind sir, drop your links. Daddy.
Sure, listeners out there. NARCAP is the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, and the website is narcap.org. And also, I can be found on Facebook under my name, Ted Rowe. And I also have a Facebook page called Everblue Freediving, and we're going to talk about that some more here in a minute. So that's how to find me. And if there are any pilots or air controllers out there that have something they'd like to talk to me about, certainly reach out to me, either through our website at narcap.org or here on Facebook. So, thank you.
Amen. Hallelujah, baby.
Yep. Hallelujah.
All right. So, Ted, let's get into your roots of shamanism. How did you first get introduced to shamanism?
Well, like most people, you go on a quest. You realize that you don't know what you need to know, and that you should be more comfortable in the world than you are, and you're not as alert as you want to be. And you look around and you see other people who claim to have answers to that, so you start digging in. And I researched a lot of things. Buddhism in particular was helpful, and I looked at a lot of different angles, and I kind of realized that they all had the same common root. And that came after I studied the U.S. government programs on ESP and synchronicity and so on. And once that became clear, then I felt like, basically the whole idea is that human beings a long time understood that there were rules to the way events occur in reality. And Carl Jung took a shot at this in his studies of synchronicity. And the U.S. government ESP research run by Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ and Dale Graff included studies of synchronicity, not only how to notice them, but how to cause them. And I realized that this is kind of the root of what shamans have been trying to do all along. They move between two worlds, and the worlds that they move between, in my understanding, are between a causal world, a world where everything has a cause and a reason, and a world where everything has meaning. And that's the world of synchronicities. They don't cancel each other out. They're just different worlds and different perspectives. And you can go from one to the other on any given day. And some problems are better solved in one than the other. And so you want to use your whole body and your whole mind. You don't want to discard parts of yourself and the knowledge that you've gained. But the roots of shamanism are about generating that. And the way you do that is by working with your consciousness. The consciousness only exists in the now and in the present. So if you're caught in the past and you're problem solving, trying to work on what came behind you and what you're afraid of, or what's in front of you and what you're afraid of, then you're not in the present moment and you're not using your consciousness. It's more or less working on autopilot. And the trick is to move your awareness into that moment and integrate with your environment and integrate with your world well. And if you do that, you will live in a different world than most people do. And
yeah, most people live in the now, but they're living in the past.
That's right.
And which basically determines their future.
That's
Most
right.
people are, they're programmed from life events to things they've been told, to things they've been read, and that determines all their decision making. And
that's right. And it has nothing to do with their awareness. They're not being aware. They're not alert.
Yep, they're just living on
and
whatever.
Shaman are alert. They're in the now. This is the whole point in impeccability in your actions and in your thoughts, because when you push something out into reality pushes something back at you. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's a freight train, and you want to be really careful about what you think, do, and say in the world. Particularly, you don't want to go around unintegrated. And if you're integrated, you're going to come from the heart at all times. You're going to deal with everybody kindly. Everybody is, at their worst, they're damaged children, and they deserve some empathy and some compassion. But nobody is evil, with probably with a couple of exceptions like Mr. Holmes there. But generally speaking, the idea is that you embrace the world, and if you're of the world, then you're in love with the world. And that means you're in love with the beings in the world, and that no being is greater or lesser than another, and no event is greater than or lesser than another. You live carefully. When something, like, for example, if your car breaks down, you could say, well, I failed to do this, and I didn't do that, and did this, and now my car doesn't work. That's a causal world. Or you can say, my car's broke, what's coming next? Look up the line and understand how it's changing the timing of the way events are unfolding in your life. And
that's human nature to point the finger at someone else or something else, though.
That's right. And if you want to be aware, you don't waste time on that, because that's about the past and about emotion and ego and nastiness, when things are happening and you need to be alert now. You need to be in the now right now, because things are happening, not pointing a finger at why you think things are happening. You need to know why things are happening. And that's
right.
Shaman, that's the seriousness that shaman bring versus the game playing that most people live through it, where the yeah but game. Okay, I'd like to do this, but yeah, but I want to be like that, but yeah, but I can't do that. I want to do that, but I'm this way, and it's just nonsense. You have to learn to move into the moment, and the best way to do that is with breath and balance. And whether you do it with kung fu or yoga or dancing, a lot of ancient villages had dancing grounds around them. They did it for shamanic practice so that they could come up into the moment and then use their consciousness to affect their environment around them. Now, it's not the best way to do everything. It's a good way to do everything, but it doesn't cover everything. You have to be causal and active and use a full spectrum of your intellectual capability. But most of us in the West only use one side of ourselves, the causal side, and we don't think in terms of meaning and chronicity and in terms of integration with our environment. Even the Western idea of what focus and concentration isn't integration. When you study, what do? You lock yourself in a room and you stare at this little thing and you push everything away from you, and that's not integrating. That's a Western idea of what focus is, and are not that aware. Go ahead.
Yeah, like when you're in school, and you. You're reading out these books, you're having all these, just these facts and stuff like that thrown at you.
Right.
You forget them immediately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you don't feel like you're part of anything just because you learned them.
Right. And, and while you're being taught that stuff, if a kid's smart enough, they'll look around and see that we're constantly repeating what we're being taught. Like in history and stuff like that. And, and they don't teach you that. They don't, because they really can't, because then it goes into opinion and ideologies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So,
right. But the real issue is, and this is why I work with shamanism the way I do, is that it's free of dogma. If you leave it at this low level and you say, what we're trying to do is teach you how to use your awareness, how to raise it, and how to use it, and just let it be understood that, believe me, listeners, when you raise your awareness, the world you live in will change, and the things you see and the things you become aware of will not be the things that most people see who are not aware. And it'll include events, it'll include phenomena, it'll include a lot of things. The shamanic world. Spirits, you don't need to pray to the raccoons or all these nature worshipping things that the New Age world has sort of given shamanic trappings to. I mean, the word shamanism is just a word. It's a term by Western anthropologists to describe indigenous religious practices all around the world. It's a catch-all phrase. It doesn't have the truth to it that we'd like it to think in terms of a pure idea of what shamanism is. But underlying what we understand about all of the spiritual practices of native peoples, they all fall back to working with the breath and balance and moving their consciousness into the present, and then using it to manipulate the way events unfold in the future. And that's the common root of the shamanic practice. And with that comes the ability to do remote viewing and perhaps some telepathies of some kind and all of that. But that's working with higher consciousness, because the consciousness wants to integrate with other consciousness. Minds want to meet other minds, and they want to do it broadband. They want to do it on as many levels as they can, and that includes intuitive levels as well. So, there's a lot more to this in terms of our physiology and so on. But the bottom line is that if you want to integrate with your world, you're going to fall in love with it, and you'll know it because you'll feel very, very good about just about everything you encounter. And that's the way it should be. Every guru tells you that. A friend of mine in his 90s told me a story of meeting a guru in India. He said, you'll be ready for all of the knowledge that you seek when you can see the beauty in that stream of human waste rolling down the middle of the street. When you can see the beauty in that, then you'll be able to see the beauty in everything, and then you'll be ready.
I think a lot of our problem is, as a species, is that we've kind of just disassociated ourselves with nature.
Right.
We're so focused and have tunnel vision on just getting up, going to work, and all that stuff that there's not a lot of people that can just sit and look at a flower, or, you know what I mean? Can sit and appreciate
That's
that,
right.
or something like that.
That's right.
It's like when they go, they'll go on vacation, and maybe they'll go to the Bahamas, or maybe they'll go to Hawaii or something, and they're just so blown away. It's like I know people that have stood in front of the Grand Canyon, and they just can't comprehend it.
That's right.
And a lot of these people, they can't. They'll go like on vacation to one of these places, and they will. It's almost just like they're just walking around in a dream world, because it's almost like an alien place, and they can't. They can't absorb it.
I see them down at the water, and they enjoying the place at what I consider a fairly superficial level, and God bless them for coming and getting it. But they don't even have enough of their own awareness involved to really appreciate the place that they're in. This goes back to the way we're trained. Goes back to Descartes. The idea that we're observers in the world, we're not of the world, and
right.
Nothing could be further from the truth. Intuitively, we all understand this, that we're part of the world we're in, and we feel separated by the walls around us and by the social issues and so on. But all of that can veil the minute you move into the now. And this is why I went into freediving, because I've been a martial artist for many, many, many years. I fought tournaments. I chased my ego and my mother across mats, around the world, basically. I've been punched in the head by just about everybody. I can take a punch in the head.
That's what you got to do to get through life, man. Got to get beat up first.
But I understood that there was a reason underneath all of this, and that I started to see what this was, that martial arts were really a shamanic practice. Come from Taoism, which is a shamanic work also, to understand synchronicities. And then I got into freediving, and I had an altered state immediately. I took a class, and there's a thing called the mammalian diving reflex. And this, you induce this. There is a series of exercises you do to induce this. And what happens is that your heart rate, you go into bradycardia. So when you dive, your heart rate's very low, and so your oxygen use is very low, and your consciousness is really clear. And here you are, you're diving without tanks to 100 feet or 150 feet or 200 feet, and yet you can do this, and your heart's beating 20 beats per minute maybe while this is going on. So you're very and the hydrostatic pressure of the water is forcing the gas from your blood into your tissues and helping you metabolize. So you're fully conscious, but your heart rate is so low that they'd be calling a crack heart if you were in that state in a hospital.
Right.
And with that low blood pressure, you have no sense of stress, and of course you're very focused on what you're doing, so you're very much in the now, just like a rock climber or anybody else gets in the moment. And then you have this experience where your consciousness expands. Only you're under the water, you're in the ocean, and oftentimes we're surrounded by dolphins who are paying attention to us, so our consciousness shifts to look at them, and information moves between us and them. We don't see them as dolphins, they don't see us as men, we don't see ourselves as men, and yet information moves between us. These are very powerful moments that are unique to the freediving practice, and we're about most of us don't get a chance to work with our aquatic side, but we have an aquatic nature that makes us able to perform to depths of 150 feet daily easily. And I teach people how to do this. This is my work at Everblue Freediving, and we're made to do it, but most people don't get a chance to. I don't know why we're made to do this, but for every shift in physics, there's a corresponding shift in physiology, with the exception of knowing how to equalize. I found the commonality in shamanic practices in freediving and began teaching it as a mind-body discipline to move you into the moment, which is what people call satori or enlightenment or whatever. It's a transient thing until you learn how to feel it and understand the physical and mental sensation of it, and then you can
right.
stay longer.
So, Ted, if you
freediving
are...
will take you there. You know.
Yeah, if you are, say you're in that state of mind with the low blood pressure, and you're got everything, you know, you're there. Can that be a dangerous time? If something external were to...
Go ahead. What kind of problem would I be dealing with?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. If you were,
sure.
say you were, well, maybe, yeah, or if you were meditating out, you know, at your house or something, got stung by a bee or whatever, right. You know, a loud noise.
Sure. You know, they did a study with Zen masters, and they set them in a racquetball court, and they put a little electrical chirper in there and hooked them up to an EEG. And what they found was that their awareness was such that their brain waves didn't activate any longer than the actual duration of the sound, just a few milliseconds longer as the brain processed the sound going through and then shut off. And this is the principal state that I tell my students. I want you listening intently, but I don't want you thinking about anything you're hearing. Because right. Each moment is new. Each moment is new. Each moment is new. There's never been another one like it. Each moment is new. You don't have time to think about the last one because the moment is new, in the now. And that's what I'm trying to teach people, to have that awareness, to listen intently, not process. So when there's a loud report, you know, a car backfires, a gunshot goes off, a couple are fighting, you don't care. It just goes in one ear and out the other. There's no bias. There's no good sound and bad sound. There's no, hey, I'm trying to meditate here, knock it off. There's none of that, because you're in a state where everything just moves through. You're listening intently. And in that case, even pain, it's transient. You'll feel it, you'll be with it, it'll pass. And which is a little different than dealing with situations in the sea, like large sharks, for example, or other situations where your awareness and your judgment are called upon, so you're using more of your brain than just the being in the moment. You're using it probably.
Right.
And in those cases, again, though, you're going to be in the best state possible because you'll have your emotions under control, your mind will be under control. You'll be able to look at the intent of that other being. I've had Marlin come up to me with the full intent of not being nice, on full alert with pectoral fin set and dorsal fin set. And I had the presence of mind to relax, turn away, don't mad dog them, take a posture that I know is submissive, because fish speak language. They use body postures, much like birds and other animals do, the lizards. And so I adopt a submissive body posture, and immediately the pectoral fins go down, the dorsal fin goes down, the marlin swims by me with a puppy dog look about 10 feet away, and I get 2 nice pictures of him. I've had big sharks show me their belly. Okay, I had a huge tiger come up on me at Honau now, and some years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, and that stopped about 6 feet from me, and we stared at each other for a bit. She was 12 feet if she was an inch, and then she turned around, and I was hanging between the points of her tail, and she swam off and spent a little more time around that particular being. And you know, the alternative was what? I had a large knife on my leg. I could have reached and pulled my knife and done something stupid, you know, and provoked something. But because I'm in the moment, I'm in the now, and each moment is new, and no moment is bigger or more important than another, and I'm calm, and my breath is under control and everything. I have the proper response, and I have a wonderful memory from it. So,
So what do you mean?
How to bring your awareness into the
What do you mean, Ted, by... Sorry, what do you mean by inside of dolphin pods? Is that, you mean like with a dolphin tribe, so to speak?
Yeah, actually swimming into the groups and then being with the groups while they're at depth. Their breath durations are around 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes on their average dives, and most of us who are good divers can keep up with that every other dive or so. So basically we'll go down and drop into it while it's deep and then just drift with it. And as long as they're swimming slow enough and we don't have to put a lot of effort into it, we can be right in it. I have plenty of videos demonstrating this sort of thing where you can integrate into these groups. And dolphins are particularly alert and astute, and they're very much in the moment. And you can see it in any of my videos when you look at these animals as they're coming up close to me and looking me over that they're very alert and very bright. And they'll let me move through their groups as long as I follow the rules, you know. And there are rules.
Oh,
so that's what it's like to be in a dolphin pod. Anyway, they're wonderful beings. They're extremely alert. You never want to take it for granted that they're going to accept you. They can be quite lethal, and they do have bad days. They murder each other. They have wars. They're advanced beings, much like we are, and in ways that we'd rather not think that they are.
Hey, man. Wars.
Chimpanzees, they do the same thing, man.
That's right.
They go to war and they have, same thing we do. So, what are some of the rules in a dolphin pod? How do they let you know that you're breaking a rule? Do they swim off away from you? Do they have somebody cut you off and kind of just make sure you don't follow them? Or
there's a couple of situations that happen. Now, sometimes the pod will have guardians. For example, if there's courting going on, occasionally there will be elders that are playing as guardians. Because the pods out here get pressure from people. They've been swimming a long time, and they come in to rest in the bays, and people come out, and so they've kind of adopted behaviors to sort of mitigate the impact if they don't want to be around people, which is about 50% of the time. They're trying to sleep during the day. They're nocturnal animals and stuff, and they're trying to mate. So sometimes when this is going on, some of the elders will run interference, and they'll kind of swim and they'll look at you, but they're between you and what's going on. Excuse me. And when they do that, if you're at all aware, you'll see it. You'll understand that you're being told off. I've had only one time I've ever been told off by a dolphin, and what you don't want to do is come into their blind zones while they're resting. So you don't want to come in from above and behind at certain angles while they're trying to sleep. And I had one turn around and really give me an earful at one point. And there was no question there. Sometimes if they're going to be violent, they'll hump their backs. They'll look at you and they'll hump their back, or they'll threaten you with a tail. I haven't run into much of that, but I'm pretty alert. Other people tell me these stories, but here's an example. I look out to sea about 500 yards out, and I see large dolphins jumping. They're too big to be spinner dolphins. I don't know what's going on. I want to see, put my gear on, I swim out. I get into the reflex, the diving reflex that I was talking about. I do some warm-up work to get there on my way out. I come to a pod of dolphins. They fan out in front of me. It turns out they're really big bottlenose dolphins. They're about 500 pounds, the size of a sofa, and you don't want what they can kill you. There's just no question. And apparently there's a mother with a baby on the other side. There was a dozen of them, plus the calf. And they all arrayed themselves between me and the calf. So I go down to about 40 feet. I turn broadside, and I just sit there. Pretty soon, ones and twos, they come by. They look me over. I get the green light. The mother brings the baby by. Next thing you know, I've got dolphins right next to me playing with me. I take my do-rag off and hand it to them, and they swim all over the place with it. And by the time it's all done, I'm giving one dolphin a huge rub down, doing the car wash thing with it, out in the middle of the ocean all by myself.
I have a very important question. Has a dolphin ever tried to seduce you?
Wow, Michael Brenner, 2.0.
I heard that story. By golly, I heard that story. Wow. Not me, but they can be randy. They really can be. I've never had that trouble myself, but there's plenty of anecdotes about that out there about dolphins and sexuality. Certainly, they're very sexual animals. There's no question about it. And it doesn't surprise me that if you look at a lot of my pics and videos, you see that they're very interactive with humans, and they take care of you. I did a dive to 140 feet one time. I had 4 of them go down with me, and on the way back, I had a whole pod pull in next to me to make sure I got up on top. So it wouldn't surprise me if the interest and concern went a little further with some dolphins and some people.
So how does the ocean life look? I mean, we hear so much about mankind destroying everything out there with the Gulf oil spill and just all the junk going on. I mean, is there some out there that are actually thriving, not being affected by it, or is, I've just read recently about, all these tuna going extinct, and they're saying the ocean's going to go extinct. As far as your view, does it seem like, there are, like some of them are okay, that they're still thriving?
Well, let's put it this way. We're on the leading edge of a disaster that hasn't quite hit yet. Okay, and the ocean I swim in the here and now is a pretty nice place, but it's under a lot of stress, and it's how it is now is not how it's going to be, and I have dire concern for the future. And right now, dolphins you couldn't eat a dolphin. It's not safe to eat a dolphin just because they're so loaded with mercury and PCB and other stuff. That it just means how badly contaminated things are. The ocean I swim in is a very beautiful place. I call it the Everblue. It's a tropical ocean, and there's no oil out here. There's nothing that anybody's interested. So other than managing garbage, we don't have a lot of local source.
Well, that's definitely a good thing. So at everbluefreediving.com, is that where everyone can go to view videos and everything and learn more about it if they want to partake if they're in the area? Hello?
I think we lost him again.
Jojo. There's a Jojo. Ted, we lost Ted into the ocean, the abyss. James Cameron took him. And he went into the ocean. Earlier he was abducted by the Men in Black, and now the Dolphin Mermaid people have taken him. And he will be back with us shortly, I hope. Sure what's going on, if it's a Skype problem or Ted's phone. But
I think JoJo is on whatever you're on.
What? I've been taking flower essences all day. This lady sent me a big box of flower essences. I can't even hardly say it. And it's like all this weird stuff for stress.
Hey guys.
Hey man. I'm not sure what happened there, but I know you got taken by James Cameron to the abyss side of the ocean, and we had to come and get you and save you. So you're
that was it. I'm floating around on a donut out here just offshore. So
yeah. So as far as the shamanism perspective, where do drugs fit in? Recently, a lady sent me a giant box of essences, flower essences. I can't even hardly say essences because I'm bored. But I've been taking these little droplets of stuff, and man, I've been feeling pretty good. Today it was pouring rain.
Really, Jeff? Really?
Today I went out to the forest. It was pouring rain with the umbrella and just like stood there, and it was like the whole earth was happy that it was raining because it's been a drought forever. But yeah,
you send me some of that?
Oh,
just kidding.
Yeah, were the little flowers and everything going, yay!
The hummingbird.
Yeah.
So where do drugs fit in? I know in the shamanism movement there's a lot of junk, ayahuasca and stuff.
Well, there is that. The idea is really, what you're talking about is the use of entheogens, in particular plants that have a lot of dimethyltryptamine, B derivatives. And this is psilocybin mushrooms, and this is ayahuasca. I don't know what the potential for abuse is with DMT because it's the brain manufactures it, and it's not the kind of thing like with psilocybin. You can't eat enough mushrooms to poison yourself, and the same with ayahuasca.
Believe me, I've tried.
Well,
wow, man, look at this cat.
We've got them growing wild here on the island, and I think it isn't required really. To be a shaman doesn't mean that you need to work with entheogens, but some people might find a benefit from it. Much like like they're using it for work with post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of our young men and women are coming back from the wars that are traumatized, and they're exploring using psilocybin and other types of entheogens in a therapeutic setting, which is basically the same thing as a shamanic setting, to help these people heal from their trauma and transcend into their next incarnation, which is who they are after the trauma they went through, and once they fixed the dissociation. And so these I don't really call them medicines. They're and I think they're very important for some practitioners. It's setting in context, and it really ought to be done around aware minds that are striving to thrive and to expand their awareness, and particularly around people who are truly good mentors, and hopefully psychologists with some experience in working with those modalities, kind of like Stan Grof used to do, Stanislav Grof but he came up with an alternative called holotropic breath work, which is a very good way to work with your traumas and clear your baggage so your awareness can come up into the now. And that's the whole point of clearing up your past, is so that you can be present. You know?
What do you think about retrieving soul fragments? Are you familiar with that?
Well, I'm familiar with a lot of different types of ideas around shamanism, and there's a lot of different approaches, and I think a lot of them arrive at the same place. And so from that context, I don't really have a negative perspective on it, just not a lot of direct experience. I prefer a very direct path. I'm not interested in being anybody's guru or following gurus. I want to get to the source of this as it's described and as I feel it. And I think that probably should be primary for any seeker, is to make sure that they're being true to their search and themselves in doing it and getting there. And if that calls for exploring modalities like entheogens, then do your research and find the right setting and context.
Can anyone be a shaman?
But there's other ways to go.
Can anyone be a
Say
shaman?
Again?
Can anyone be a shaman?
Yes. Anybody who's working on their awareness and trying to grow is on a shamanic path, as far as I'm concerned. And anyone can do it. In some tribes like the Bushmen, there is no supreme shaman. There's about 50% of the men and about 30% of the women practice shamanism as a group to enhance the health of the group and the individuals. So there isn't necessarily. We all need to be working to be shaman. We all need to work to integrate in our environment and to raise our awareness. And when we do that, we live in a different world.
I think shamanism. There's a lot of posers out there. There's a lot of people who say they're shamans and stuff like that, and usually just trying to sell you something. But to me, I think shamanism is relative. It's relative to the person. I think it's each person's path will take them somewhere different. I don't think anybody's path is the same. And I like what I'm hearing from you is that you don't have all the answers. You're not giving people absolutes about things, about whatever. You're just, here's what you do, find your moment.
That's right.
When you find your moment, which is probably completely different from mine, you know what I mean?
We're going to integrate. And I'll tell you what, if you're in your moment and I'm in mine and we look each other in the eye, we're going to know. And this is a very interesting side effect of this that I want your listeners to understand, is that when you reach a certain level of clarity and you're graceful in your clarity and you're walking down the street, you will see others out there, and you will be shocked at how many there are who are in a similar state. And I walked by a group of men the other day that were on the other side of the street. Now, to the back of that group, a pair of clear eyes, a man looked at me. I saw him. He saw me. We merged just for a moment. I looked again. He slightly bowed his head and touched his heart. I did the same, and we continued walking, and I've never seen him again. But I have experiences like this probably 2-3 times a week, and often daily, depending on who I'm encountering and how my synchronicities are lining up. And that's what happens when you're aware. You suddenly realize that, not everybody is screwed up.
Right.
People that are actually doing their work, and you can encounter them, and you can see them, and they can see you, and that's very important validation as you're moving up in your awareness. So those are the things that I want people, listeners out there, to be tantalized by. I'm not here to talk to you about buffalo spirits or anything. The basic thing is use the tools you're born with, and you're not using your consciousness fully, then learn how to do it, and it will change your life. It'll change the way you look at reality. You will find love. Believe me, it is all around you, and you will come from it. You will ooze it. You will give it to others, and they'll give it to you, and you won't think twice about it. Your view of the world will change.
Yeah, and a lot of times there are people that do actually want to take the journey. You know what? They know there's something else, but they don't have any guidance, and they get with these New Age kooks, or they go into these sweat lodges, and they die.
Oh yeah.
And
God bless them for trying.
Yeah, and that's bad. That's bad. I mean, that is.
It is. Well, and this is the responsibility of people like me who are going to talk about this in public, is to make sure that we do it. I'm not here to massage my ego. I truly care and love my fellow man, and I hope anybody out there listening understands that, and that they feel some pull to integrate with their environment and know what that is. That is the heart of compassion. You can call it Christ consciousness. You can call it, whatever you want to. But the fundamental thing is that when you're truly integrated with your world and in the moment, you love your world, and you love.
It's more. I call it more Christian than Christian.
That's a good way to say it. Sure.
There are no. Let me put it this way. The Christians that are out there with I don't mean to be political, but with the GOP and the hating hating homosexuals and all that stuff, dropping bombs on people, they're not Christian. They're
That's right.
Whether Jesus existed or not, to me, what he is, he represents maybe the Martin Luther King of his. That, to love everything, to love your fellow man, and with love you can,
right.
You don't have to hate. You can put all this stuff away. Jesse, and I know Jesus wasn't a Christian; he was a Jew. Dumbass.
Well, he might not have even been that. He might have been a Essene or something else.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
but being from that area,
Yeah, if you
go ahead.
If you follow the things that he said, if the world did that, we wouldn't be having any of the problems that we're having now. Really. If we actually
I would
loved our fellow man, and we honestly helped and generously cared about the homeless and the people that were hurting, instead of all the other stuff that's distracting us, this world would be a completely different society.
Well, if we go ahead.
It's almost against our nature to do that. It's almost, you know what I mean? It's like, Jesus wasn't human.
So here's the deal. Okay, now, let me help with this a little bit, and this is only my perspective, so bear with me. But you can look around and you can look at people who are masters, and you can look at Jesus, for example. And I need to enhance myself, so I need to be more loving. So I'm going to start being more loving. You go around, you're loving, but something about you isn't feeling it. Okay, what you're doing is you're taking these traits to enhance the person you already are, when what you really ought to focus on, or might find more beneficial to focus on, is the person that you are, and raising that awareness. Because when that awareness comes up, then it expands, and then you've got the love going outward as a byproduct of who you are, versus a mold that you've tried to cram yourself into to feed your ego. And an ego says, oh, I should be this way, oh, I should be that way, oh, I should be the other way. But being in the moment defines how you are in reality. And there's a difference between the two, and it's night and day. And I think that this is the struggle for everybody on a spiritual path, whether they're a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or anything else. There's all levels of engagement there as they work their way up to expanding their awareness and moving into that heart of compassion, versus saying that I should be in the heart of compassion. You know, when your awareness expands and you're integrated with your world, you love your world. And all that love that Christ was talking about was coming out of that place where his awareness was expanded and he was integrated with his world. He looked at the bigger picture when he looked at a person. And that's why he said, judge not lest ye be judged, right? Because there's a big picture here. And if your awareness is big enough, you can see that there's more going on here than somebody just, you know. And if you have that ability, then you can be gracious. That's grace and clarity. You have the clear vision, you have clarity, and you're exercising grace in the process. And that's the difference between egotistically moving yourself forward to become more of what you are versus the shamanic dismemberment of being torn apart and becoming something completely different that you can't imagine yet. And that's where the fear is, and that's in the shamanic initiation. That's why it's so fearful and so difficult, because you're stripped completely away. All of who you were goes, and then you become. And it doesn't matter what forge you go through. You can go through it as a martial artist. You can go through it as a monk. You can go through it as a free-diving swimmer like I do. You can go through it as a bus driver or anything else. As you said, many ways to walk that path. But eventually, all of your old habits, if you're truly on the path, will be gone because you won't exist as who you were before. You're living in the now. You're in the present. And that being is brand new. Every new moment never existed before.
Yeah, because you're just stripping away the crap, basically.
That's right. That's right. And that's why dealing with your baggage, that's why when you have strong feelings and you don't know the roots of them and you feel like, oh, I'd like to be that way, but I just can't because of this, that, or the other thing. So important to chase down those feelings, find out when you first felt that way, talk to the you were at that time with the most maturity you can bring to it, and hug and nurture and take care of that you. And I guarantee that if you do that 2 or 3 times with issues that have huge charges and huge stings with you, they will be much reduced and you will feel much better day to day. That's just disarming your trauma, you know. The problem with PTSD, people dissociate. They don't actually feel what happened to them. Something terrible started to happen and they moved outside of themselves and they stopped. And that's what dissociation is. And so the trick is to go ahead and finish, let them feel that whole thing, and then transcend. Have a spiritual emergence to become the next evolution of what they're going to be. You know,
right.
No longer blocked in. And that's part of raising your awareness into the now so you don't have this stuff tearing at you while you're trying to be in the moment and integrated. And that's the whole story in a nutshell, guys.
Yeah, and that kind of goes with, later on in life as you start to deal with problems. If something gets chaotic or stressful, instead of dealing with it and feeling with it, you just check out. You check out with drugs or alcohol, and everybody's done it. I did it,
But when you have that awareness, you don't get stressed.
Right.
And synchronicities are working for you, so you don't worry because you know something's going to work out, and you make sure that you're doing what you should in order for the connections to occur, and then you go out, and my golly, you're just on the bus, and there's a guy standing next to you, and you start talking, and it's the guy you need to meet. It's the situation you need to work out. You're in the mix, you're doing stuff. The problem is that when you bunker up, and you do your drugs or whatever, you drink your beer or whatever, and then you're not connected to your environment, you're not integrated, so the synchronicities aren't going to line up for you well. And then you're really at the whim of what your emotions create for you, which is usually trouble. You're not in control.
Right.
So
all right.
So anyway, this is the whole exercise. This is the whole game. This is what Shop's root is the way I teach it. So
sounds great. When can we expect that book?
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. A couple more months. I'm hacking away a chapter 2 at a time and trying to figure out how to integrate these ideas so that they're, like I said, I don't want to be anybody's guru. I have a perspective, and I think it's helpful, and I think a lot of folks in Western civilization might find it helpful to look at it in an easy way that doesn't have any dogma or, to worship chipmunks or something in order to know
definitely want to check it out. What time do we got, Guy? I want to make sure he can drop his links before we...
we got about 3.5 minutes.
All right, Ted, if you could, give us those groovy links again before we depart.
Okay. National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena. That's NARCAP, NARCAP.org. That's where we do all our aviation and pilot studies, and please come and take a visit. And you can reach me at Ted_Rowe at NARCAP.org if you have something to talk about relating to that. I also am on Facebook as Ted Rowe, and there shouldn't be any trouble figuring out which one I am. I'm the guy with the samurai sword. and then I also have a page for my freediving, which is everbluefreediving.com and Everblue Freediving on Facebook. 2 words, Everblue space freediving for Facebook. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm looking for friends, and I'm looking for ideas, and I'm very much here for you. So love for all of you, and good luck in the world, everybody. We're living in tough times. Think about love and think about peace. Do it a lot.
All right, Ted. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. We'll definitely be in touch, and when you get that shaman book going and rock and rolling, we'll have to get you on again to get back into that again. It was beautiful. So thanks for doing the show, and thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you very much. Absolutely, you guys. Right on for everybody. Thank you very much, you guys, and this was very easy, and I look forward to any other time you need me. So, and regards to your listeners, all of you, one love, everyone.
All righty, everybody. It's see you next week with the Romanex about their bedside manner. Good night.
Good night.